or sometimes said, that India can see all three sides of a bipolar debate. Now, this is a tribute to our dexterity, yes, but is it also a failing? We seem to straddle many boats. G7, as well as the Global South, Quad, as well as BRICS. We don't take a clear position one way or the other on the Ukraine-Russia war. In all this, what is the authentic Indian position? If I could put it so as a fellow citizen, who are we?
Um, who are we? I would say uh, maybe the three, four dimensions which are important to understand India. First of all, uh, the global south, the decolonization, because it is impossible to appreciate India's global positions without being cognizant of the colonial history. Because when you have lost your independence and struggle to recover it, there is a whole mindset which comes with it. So I would say very definitely global south is one. Two, democratic. Our choice in the 1940s to become a modern democratic polity, I argue we draw on our own traditions in that regard. Uh, to be a democratic polity, to be a market economy, to be a society which respects faiths, I think this is also a very important part of our DNA. And sometimes even we in India take it a bit for granted, but many of our positions take this into account. Third, I would argue that in a way we have navigated, adapted to a world which has not always been kind to us, which has not always been accommodating at us. But we have, in that sense, developed a certain skill of which you make some reference, uh, but a way of really, I would call it both a tactical skill but a long view. That we have a not, a 5-year, 10-year necessarily horizon and understanding of ourselves. And for today, as the most populous country in the world, as the fifth largest economy of the world, perhaps third by the end of this decade, in various other domains, you can see, I mean, we are still doing more, we are contributing more. I think the idea of a multipolar world, and where India itself is concerned to think of how to become a leading power at some point of time. I think these are the the global south character, the democratic character, the adapting long view aspect, and a multipolar world towards which we are working. I think if you keep these in mind, a lot of what we do in different situations would make sense. Now, you put your question in a certain way. I understand why you want to elicit a certain reply from me. But based on your question, you began by saying 23, 24, 25. How has it changed? I would argue many of the positions we took in 23 and 24 on this very platform, which at that time were not necessarily liked, today stood the test of time.
True, true. Dubai Abul Hol, I'd like to take that same point about taking the long view to your part of the world. Sitting at conferences like this one, discussing sovereignty, territorial integrity, agency of domestic decision making, all of this sounds almost theoretical if you consider Syria or Lebanon. The best antidote, and I guess India is one example of this, is state formation, robust state formation. Shouldn't the Arab world also look inwards?
I think, frankly, from a distance, it might look like territorial integrity and sovereignty seem like theoretical debates when it comes to states like Syria and Lebanon. But we cannot brush over the fact that state institutions in many parts of the Middle East have been hollowed out. And they've been hollowed out by war, by conflict, by foreign interference. And yes, I think a core solution will have to be empowering stronger state authority. But I would argue what's more important than that is having the Arab world look inwards to decide what does Arab agency and legitimacy look like going forward. So looking inward, yes, is important, but that shouldn't be an exercise of further isolating the region away from its wider neighborhood. And I think on the debate of what does agency look like for the Arab world and Arab states today, two things are very important, and two things uh, have to be more honestly open to debate. And one of them is regional institutionalization. What does Arab multilateralism look like today? We need to have an inward exercise of saying, okay, if we're talking about how the international community has failed us, how multilateralism is broken, how can we build our own multilateral arrangements that can work for the region and by the region? And that does not just include perhaps expanding the mandate of the Arab League or the GCC. These are kind of easy wins, I would say, or a more of a clear pathway forward. But we also have to look at thematic multilateralism in the region in sectors like water, but also AI and food security. And so there needs to be a, instead of waiting for the world to rearrange itself to sort of suit our needs, we have to build our own multilateral frameworks that work for our region. And secondly, is technology and defense capabilities. There has to be a decades-long investment in domestic capacity building when it comes to these two sectors, because it's not sustainable for the region. I think much of the world to be in panic every 4 years whenever there's a new White House, and how that directly impacts domestic security and defense capabilities. So I think, yes, we've spoken a lot about how the world has failed us, but we need to take matters, I think, as a region in our own hands in a way that fits what we need in 2025 and beyond.
That's a good way to move to audience questions. We have less than 5 minutes, so we'll have time for maybe one or two questions, and then the panel will close with quick closing remarks. I'll move first to the young fellows. If anyone has a question there, identify yourself with your name and institutional affiliation and ask a simple, focused question, please. Go ahead.
Hello, good morning. This is Meena from Malaysia. Minister Jaishankar, you mentioned India's role in the global south. Do you think India has any appetite to be a normative power in the region? Thank you.
Normative. We'll take a couple of more questions. If there are mics on both sides, if you can walk to the mic. Anyone else from the young fellows who has a question? Look, you need to walk to the mic. Just don't have your hands up. Just go to the mic. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. My name is Australia. My question relates to artificial intelligence and the apparent accelerated track that it's on. So my question to you is, do you see, on balance, AI being a net negative or a net positive for defending national sovereignty? If you see opportunities, how do we capitalize on them? If you see risks, how do we manage them? Thank you.
That's to the entire panel or any one person?
Whoever may wish to answer.
Whoever may start. And one more question, someone there. Yes, go ahead, the lady.
Good morning, everybody. So my questions to Honorable Jaishankar. I'd like to draw your attention to the Quad, where the leadership changes have been very acute. We've seen Australia transition between Scott to Anthony, Japan from Shinzo Abe to Shida, and US from Biden to Trump. And of course, in India, the Prime Minister Modi has, provided a sense of continuity amidst the global shift.
Your question, please.
Yeah. So, as India assumes the presidency of the Quad this year, how do you envision India leading the way and setting the tone for the critical grouping? And now coming back to a related note.
Just one question. Fine. Thank you. Anyone else from that side for the final question?
Second from the
Go ahead.
AI, artificial.
No one? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Josiane Kotayer from Town. I have to. So, hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the.
Ma'am, just a question, please, quick.
Discussion. Cyber. But also the role that you see when it comes to cyber and how we should also discuss this on a multilateral aspect because it's a known geopolitical weapon that is being already used. And it's critical that we look into this aspect too.
Thank you. So we have two questions for Mr. Jaishankar, in particular, normative power and Quad, and general questions on AI, cybersecurity, which I'd request the rest of the panel to also take in their closing remarks. No, sir, we're done, sir. We're done, sir, please. We're out of time. So I'll go quickly with starting with you, Mr. Jaishankar.
Okay. The characteristics when I spoke about India, global south, democratic, market economy, the long view, I think in a way that I don't want to call it a normative power, but I think we are very representative in many ways. And as the biggest country in the world, I guess our successes or shortcomings will have an impact on everybody else, especially in the global south. On AI, I would, of course, consider it obviously a clear net plus. On Quad, look, the first meeting, diplomatic engagement of the incoming Trump administration on January 21 was Quad. So I think that tells you what they think of Quad and what all of us think of Quad. And on cyber, I would say the more digital we get, obviously, the more important cyber gets. And like anything in life today, obviously, it can be weaponized. And because it can be weaponized, it needs to be safeguarded.
Thank you. Dubai, anyone issue you want to pick up and comment on as
Yes,
closing comments?
I wanted to just highlight the idea of alternative multilateralism. We've spoken at length about UN reform, but that conversation cannot just be within the halls of the UNGA every September. There needs to be a greater investment in alternative new mechanisms, including BRICS and others, because we cannot just wait for the UN to reform itself.
Great. Jurai, do you want to respond to any of the questions?
So about the AI, I think it's our responsibility as elected leaders to make sure that our society are resilient to external manipulation and interference. So that means, first of all, we need to make sure that our norms, laws, and procedures are up to date to the most recent technological advance and hybrid tactics. So we have to be ready for this and to prepare ourselves.
Thank you. Dominic. Nothing. Carl, you have the last word.
Yes, just briefly on AI, I agree, net positive. But in this world of turmoil that we're living at the moment, we should recognize that there are three areas where we, irrespective of everything else, need to work together. One is global health, second is climate change, and the third is AI. We need guardrails. We need some principles that unites everyone. And we now have a process inside the UN. We have a G20 Hiroshima process. We have a series of AI security summits. We have a bilateral US-China dialogue, at least we had one. I don't know if it's still ongoing. And we need to bring all of this together at some point in time into some sort of guardrail framework that applies to all of us in order to be able to use all of the net positive that's going to be there.
Thank you. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for the audience. I now hand you back to the organizers who will take us into the rest of the program. Photograph. Oh, photograph.